Stone Temple Pilots, dude. Um, I don't know what the public perception is of Stone Temple Pilots today, but I know that like back in the '90s, in their heyday, they are constantly facing criticism. One thing that you and I come back to a lot is that they were underrated as a band. Um, the more I listen to them, I think that's totally true. Even when they were being like, even when they were sounding a lot like their peers, I still think that they were underrated as a band. But we're in agreement on that part, right? Like we can start there. Stone Temple Pilots are underrated.
Yes. I just told you recently that I didn't listen to Stone Temple Pilots for a long time. I mean, you would hear one of their chart toppers here or there, you just hear it out in the wild about your daily routine, but I wasn't sitting down with their albums. And when I went back and listened to Tiny Music, I'm like, man, that's even better than I remember it being. It's definitely stands the test of time. And as I think about what Stone Temple Pilots achieved in their music catalog, I just think this is one of the best collaborative songwriting bands, definitely of their era. I think of all time, just as how a band, the music that they've written together, um, the vocals that Scott Weiland puts on the what Robert DeLeo writes or Dean writes, just incredible. And the music that the DeLeo brothers and even Eric,
Kretz.
what yeah, even he's written songs too, just and they're all fantastic. So I think Stone Temple Pilots just uh I think a lot of people missed out on some of their music because they only know their singles.
I also think that people know mostly songs from those first two albums. And I think that there's like, because you have Core and you have Purple, and there are some very popular songs on both of those albums. I mean, I don't know what their Spotify top streamed songs are, but I bet you most of them are from those two albums. But for me, it's like once you get, you don't even have to move past those albums. I do think of all their albums, the first one is it does sound the most like, hey, there's a sound right now, and we're kind of tapping into that. But in there are great songs, and it's way more sophisticated than you might think. But then as you progress throughout, I mean, you get into the second album, you have songs like Big Empty or Interstate Love Song. I mean, those songs don't really sound like anyone else, especially Interstate Love Song. I mean, that sounds like Stone Temple Pilots. And then you get into Tiny Music, and that's like wholly original. Uh, I don't know. For me, I would say the factors that make them the reason people would benefit from checking them out, the things that make them compelling for me, an amazing frontman. I mean, Weiland, his stage presence is incredible, but what he was capable of vocally, it doesn't fully reveal itself until you get more into Tiny Music or even Number Four, like that range that he has. And I don't necessarily mean like vocal range, but the ability to have that early, classic alt rock, grungy, guttural thing that he has in like Wicked Garden, all the way up into this much raspier, higher pitched voice that he sings with in Tiny Music. He's capable of going to a lot of places vocally. I think he writes really strong melodies, but his presence is phenomenal. Like he looks great on stage, and we've seen him live. You saw him a couple times live, but he dominates the stage. He's exactly what you want in a front man. He has the slick moves, and it's not. Despite the lyrics and despite how his voice sounds on the first two albums, you would expect like a big brooding guy. I remember when I first heard like Wicked Garden, I thought like, man, he sounds like a scary guy, like even in the video, you can't really see him that clearly. And you're like, God, is this guy like sort of like all tatted up and just like muscular and stuff. And then you kind of see like, no, he kind of has that skinny, wiry thing going on. And he kind of, he can move like your best frontman. So I think to start off there, it's like, you can start off with the fact that Scott Weiland's an amazing frontman, and that's one of the things that sets them apart.
And I would say they closely resemble Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
Now, I am not trying to say as individuals, that the DeLeo brothers can match Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones, or Eric can match John Bonham. That would be ludicrous to, as anybody could say that they could stand up individually. But when you put the four pieces together, they're doing kind of like what Led Zeppelin's doing, just unbelievable individual playing that when put together, and then they put that together and just gel, and make magic. And so I think that's why I think they're one of the greatest rock bands of all time. And obviously, uh you don't hear Stone Temple Pilots mentioned like that. They may be mentioned as, hey, they are one of the best bands of the 90s, but like you said, a lot of their earliest criticisms were that they were just kind of trying to mimic other bands who had achieved massive appeal before them.
The point you made just then about the personnel and just the musicianship of those three guys, like, we've covered Weiland, but like the DeLeos and Kretz, like, man, they're great. Like, each one of them singularly are really bringing a lot to the table. And there's something romantic about like a four piece, like Stone Temple Pilots, where you have a lead singer and then everybody's doing one thing, right? Like, I love two guitar bands. Like, some of my favorite bands are two guitar bands or even three guitar bands, but there is something romantic about, like, you got one guitarist over there, one bassist and one drummer, and these three guys together can create something that's exponentially greater than the sum of the parts. Or the sum for, outweighs the individual parts. And I think that Stone Temple Pilots also manage that exactly to what you were just saying. It's like the decisions that they make. And when we talked about Tiny Music, did a whole episode on it. The thing that struck me when listening to that album and dissecting the different songs is, like, I had my guitar in my hands, and often I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And I think the analogy I made in there is like you're a mechanic opening up the hood and you're like, whoa, because I'm just used to this car just running down the road and looking, to extend this metaphor probably far past where it should be. Like, it's like, oh, this thing runs great. It looks, and then you open up the hood and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't know it was this intricate inside, but that's how, like, Dean's guitar parts are. When you dissect them and listen to them, you're like, this is crazy. Like, I would never think to play this. Or if you're just like a standard rock guy and you're used to playing in blues pentatonic boxes and stuff, you're going to open up that guitar part and you're going to look at it and you're going to say, what, where did he get this from? What influenced him? And then you look at Dean, or you look at Robert on bass. And dude, we talked about this in the episode too, but it's like his bass lines are so all over the place, but it never feels like, boy, somebody needs to tell that guy to calm down. You know what I mean? Like, it is always just like on point and exactly what you want to hear. And he's also a composer, he's a writer. So I think he knows how to write things that complement a song really well. Same thing with Kretz, also a songwriter. And has the ability, I think, has an ear for like serving the song. And each of these guys serve the song. But when you take out their individual part and you dissect it, it's so much fun and it's really fascinating. So the way that everything fits together, I think that, like, they're really electric as a four piece that comes together and have this really amazing alchemy between all of them that makes them also a really special band from that time.
Yeah, that's well said. To be the sort of musician that not only I have the chops to be a great player, but also play with the mindset of a composer and a servant of the song. That's a whole nother level. So that's what these guys do so well. That I was thinking of that earlier today, that Robert is such a good songwriter that it's not you know, it's no wonder that he writes such amazing bass lines, because he can write the entire song. But yeah, gosh, we were talking about, I can't remember what song we were talking about earlier, where his bass line is just so active and so bouncy and moves. I think it's Tripping on a Hole in a Paper Heart,
It
where he
was,
just
yeah,
dances up that do 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 do. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, it's just, and like you said, like, it's so busy and so active, but the song needs every single one of those to keep
yeah.
the groove and the pace. The he's the syncopation there that gives it the groove. So, yeah, to understand, to not only just be a magnificent player, but then also to understand what the song needs to make it shine is an incredible ability.
And I'll kind of bring it back home with what you were saying earlier. Another echo of yours is the songs, like the quality of the writing, and they all had hands in this and would write different songs. And sometimes it's surprising to see who wrote what. But I mean, again, those earlier albums, even if they do sound of their time, they're very memorable. The melodies are always fantastic. The songwriting, the crafting of the chords and the chord voicings are always unexpected. It's just a little different. I mean, even when they sound like their peers, there's some stuff going on under the hood that is very different and very unique. The other thing I think that is worth, like, you can kind of see an evolution too, all the way up into number four. You know, you have songs like Sour Girl, you know, like that's a great song. I Got You. I mean, those are really poppy, friendly songs that you could throw on with to in any crowd, and they would go over well because or you know, Lady Picture Show off of Tiny Music. I mean, there are these, we talked about Interstate Love Song, like they're just like have these timeless melodies and song structures that I think are infinitely listenable. They could appeal to anybody, and even though like a lot of STP's music can be quite aggressive and in your face, they have range that is that people I don't think often recognize them for. You know, they're not just a one gear band. Like they have a lot of different places that they can go. So I mean, anytime that you're evaluating a band, and you were saying this earlier too when we were talking just off camera about like at what point can you kind of say like, look, we have to respect this band, like this band has to be respected? Like how many quality songs, how many quality albums do you need before you can, before you have to sort of acknowledge their greatness, you know? And I think STP definitely hits that mark. You think of so many bands that were amazing, legendary bands that had two albums, you know, and they flamed out before they could have other albums, or they're most known for two or three albums. You know, with Stone Temple Pilots, depending on how deep you want to go, you know, some people might be like, look, I like their first two albums, or I like their first three, number four didn't do it for me, or you like all the way through number four and maybe you fell off before Shangri-La Da or whatever. But you have to acknowledge that they had several albums that were really solid. If you've done that much work, even if you have later material that doesn't hold up to that standard, and to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know if STP's later work does or doesn't. I'm one of those fans that it was almost painful after you know that Scott's not there. And it's like, gosh, you almost don't want to revisit it, even though I'm sure that those guys did some cool stuff. But man, how much good material do you need before you acknowledge that this band like deserves to be considered one of the greats of their era?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, they from I would argue from 92 to '01. were just on the top of their game. And I don't know, what their touring history was, or like how many shows they played, or what their tours were like, but you have to imagine that uh, they toured a lot over those that time frame and sold out a lot of venues, and I just think those first four albums particularly were were amazing, and when you go back and listen to them today, sound just as good today as they did 30 years ago.
One of the interesting things you talk about their touring was like they kind of had a Nirvana esque trajectory on the touring front in that you had a front man who had addiction issues, and that would often cut short the tours. And instead of going out on the road and being a road dog for 2 years to promote this album, those long tours would get cut short, and they would have to cancel dates. So you have this really you also have this that tension that's always within the band that I don't want to be one of those guys that like mythologizes that stuff or says that like, oh, that's part of what made him great. I don't think that being like destructive, self-destructive or anything like that is like is a requirement for genius or anything like that. I think that's not the healthiest mindset to have, but there is something about the connection that those guys have. Like there's something about those four dudes and what they could accomplish together that I definitely think that they are. I'm glad that we're having this conversation because I think we both are in agreement about how underrated they are. If you're talking to someone and you've convinced them, our conversation has convinced them, and they're like, all right, okay, I'm gonna give STP another shot. Where are you going to direct them to go? Are you going to say, what are you going to you going to send them to an album? Are you going to just have them do their greatest hits? Is there a song or two in particular? Where are you pointing someone toward in the STP discography?
I would send them to Tiny Music because you're going to get a wide variety of STP's catalog. You're going to get the chart topping, easy to latch on to songs, and then you're going to get some cool, unexpected surprises. But I think if you just wanted to start with their familiar hits, that wouldn't be a wrong place to go either. But I'm gonna hand somebody Tiny Music and say start here.
I think it's a solid starting ground. I mean, it's like I do think it's for me, it's my favorite of their albums. It's very unique. Nothing else sounds like it. No other Stone Temple Pilots album sounds like it, but it also has their best attributes. I think all packaged up in a great album. Also, think like if someone is like, I don't know, I haven't really, I've heard about them and stuff, but I don't really know, you really could go to their whatever streaming platform you use, whatever music streaming platform you use, and just go through their hit like the most popular one and go down to the list because you would be shocked at how familiar you probably already are with these songs. And they're so good, dude. Like I've talked about, and throughout this, and then the conversation that we had about Tiny Music, you'd almost think I was being like dismissive of a song like Wicked Garden because of how Weiland does sing a lot like the guys were singing at that time and all that stuff. Dude, that's a great song. It's the way it's written, the energy, it has a really memorable melody. I think even their songs that people might give them flack for have a lot more going for them than a lot of the critics would want to admit. But yeah, I agree. You could kind of point them anywhere if you're like, go through their most popular songs and tell me that you don't either know this one already because of your exposure to it over the years without you realizing it, or tell me that a song like Interstate Love Songs doesn't do it for you. You know what I mean? Like, what more proof do you need than that?
Exactly. Tell me Plush doesn't just still sound awesome and huge.
100%. So there it is. There's our case for Stone Temple Pilots being underrated. Who else is underrated? Did we leave anything off the table when we're talking about the greatness of STP? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And stick around. Subscribe to the channel if you like these conversations.
Who's your most underrated band? I'd like to hear. I bet some people would have some bands that I've never heard of, or I might even consider underrated. Why don't you tell us why we're wrong?
Give us some homework to do. Give us some stuff to go listen to. I'm all about it.